Fans, be cool, it's just part of the program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You're not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us. Yo, your fans just might turn into our fans. Be cool, it's just a part of this program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us.
Oh, out with the old and in with the new. Justin, my man, it's been like 2 months.
It has been way too long. But Saul, I have something to read to all of our listeners and viewers. The following statement was released today by us, Saul Bookman and Justin Spears, through their personal attorney and business manager, David B. Falk, chairman of Falk Associates Management Enterprises Incorporated fame, located in Washington, D.C., in response to questions about their future with Total BS Podcast. We are back.
We are officially back. And with that, here is our new intro.
Yo, your fans just might turn into our fans. Be cool, it's just a part of this program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us. For real.
How absolutely sick is that? By the way, for those of you who don't know, I've never seen the show before. I am Saul Bookman. This is Justin Spears. Justin we are lifelong friends. I say lifelong. We met each other like five, six.
Like a lifetime.
It feels like a long time. It's my brother from another mother, and we're just here to entertain you. Talk about a little bit of everything, sports wise. We're really big hoop heads, obviously. As you can see in the intro, there was 2 little basketball clips, but we'll talk about everything. We just want to have a good time. We want your involvement. If you want to be a part of the show, all you got to do is place a comment in the chat, and here we go.
Yeah, I'm excited for, I think we call this season 2. Is that like the official title of what we're doing with Total BS Podcast?
Yeah, it's season 2, baby.
Or it's just a revamped, it's just a better version. It's overall just a better product. We have a better view. Like when you watch us, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, Total BS Podcast is everywhere when we go live. The art and everything that Tara Funk provided for us, and Tara is a very talented artist. And Saul, you were actually the one who introduced Tara and I, and you discovered her on social media and saw her work and what she does. And if you're on Instagram, please go check out her work, Tara Funk, F-U-N-K. That's her last name. Her first name is spelled T-A-R-A. Tara Funk. All you have to do is just look her up on Instagram, and you see the absolute amazing work that she provides on her day job. And then we just thought, hey, well, we're trying to come up with a new look. We think you'd be able to help us out. Sure enough, she said, hey, guys, give me a few months. And, she took her time with it. And we are so glad she did, because the final product was unbelievable. Tara,
yeah.
Chef's kiss with the new look.
So awesome that it took Justin's mic out. Because he's using his laptop mic and he doesn't even realize it.
Oh, man.
Oh, you let the whole team down.
This is why we do sound checks, Saul.
This is why we do sound check. I don't know if maybe you need to directionally aim it towards you, but all right. There it is. There it is. He's back.
Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I had to adjust the settings. Usually in Zoom, it automatically connects whenever I connect my microphone, but obviously didn't do it here. So I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. Season 2 off to a hot start.
This ain't your daddy's streaming platform. I'll tell you that much right now. So here we go. Justin, it has been a while since we've been on. So I felt like, it's probably a good idea to kind of circle the wagons, kind of rehash what we all missed in the last couple of months. Well, you guys didn't miss it. Obviously, you guys have been following social media and whatnot, but what we missed on this show and our thoughts in terms of what we missed. And we might as well go ahead and start off with what just happened last weekend, and the GOAT, the one and only Mr. Brady, leading the Bucs to another Super Bowl win for himself. That's number 7. And it didn't even take him a week to get back on the field and start training again for number 8. Justin, what are your thoughts about that, man?
It's amazing, man. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. And if you had any doubt after this Super Bowl, you really need to reassess how you view greatest quarterbacks of all time, because it's ridiculous. He went to a team that had Jameis Winston, and did they even make the playoffs under Jameis Winston last year?
No, they were 7-9, I think.
Yeah. So he goes over to that team, and it wasn't like he was just dropped right there and all of a sudden they became a Super Bowl team. He brought along Rob Gronkowski. They were able to get an Antonio Brown, and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they also did well in the NFL draft this past year, and all the pieces came together. And it didn't look like it was going to work out. We all remember the was it week 4 when they were playing against the New Orleans Saints, and it looked like Tom Brady didn't even realize what down it was. Yeah. And we all thought, wow, maybe this is Patrick Ewing playing for the Orlando Magic. Maybe this is Gary Payton and Karl Malone playing for the Lakers. Maybe this is Michael Jordan playing for the Washington Wizards.
Not so fast.
We thought that for a moment. And then when they lost the Kansas City Chiefs, we thought, I don't think this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team has it.
We already have somebody in the chat saying, "Oh, don't you worry, Patrick Mahomes will be back."
Oh, I believe it. I really think next year we could possibly see another Bucs Chiefs Super Bowl.
By the way, just throwing this out there, this man Joshua DeWitt. If you don't know him, that's okay. If you're into barbecue, this guy runs probably the most clever name in all of barbecue seasoning. It's called Scooby Dooby Q. And
that's great.
It's awesome. He's got a variety of different spices, so you can look him up. He has a Facebook page as well. So Scooby Dooby Q, where are you? There it
tastes so good, make you want to slap your mama.
There you go. There you go. He's a Kansas City guy. That's why the Patrick Mahomes comment. But to your point, Justin, I mean, I don't know if I've seen a guy, especially in the NFL, one of the most physical games out there, period. Being able to do what he's doing, and every time you watch Mr. Tom Brady take the field, you just got to feel good about your chances, because at least at the very least, he's not going to mess up. You know what I mean? And that's like half the game. That's half the game right there. Yeah. And he doesn't make mental errors very much. He did a few times against Green Bay, and it looked like they were going to choke that game away, but they held on. And then they essentially dominated Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs the next week. And I'll say this, though. We can't discredit Holmes, because Patrick Mahomes on one foot did everything he possibly could to win that game for the Chiefs. It's not his fault dudes can't catch when the ball's hitting them in the face mask. You know what I mean? Like, bruh, help your man out.
The defensive line getting to him every single play. I mean, there was something I saw on Twitter after the Super Bowl where it shows the difference between the two quarterbacks and how much they scanned the field with their feet. And Patrick Mahomes was all over the field. Tom Brady was within the tackles. Tom Brady, if you go back and you look at that Super Bowl, Tom Brady wasn't running at all. But he was getting the ball out of his hands. The wide receivers were clearly wide open. And Tom Brady actually performed well in the Super Bowl. And it got me thinking about old quarterbacks who have been in this position before. And I thought about Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl when the Broncos beat the Panthers. Peyton relied on that incredible defense to just rock Cam Newton all night long. And while that was the case in this Super Bowl, Tom Brady stepped up to the plate when the Buccaneers needed him, and they just mopped the floor with Kansas City. And I thought it was really cool to see. It
was a great game plan. It was really, really sour for me to watch. Essentially, the entire coaching staff that used to coach for the Cardinals go over to Tampa Bay and win a Super Bowl. Yeah, Todd Bowles, and then you had Byron Leftwich, you had Bruce Arians, obviously as the head coach. Man. I mean, the whole trio was there. You had Deion Buchanan, who Justin and I, we've had some time together with Deion back in the day. I mean, they had essentially a Cardinals reunion out there on the East Coast and took home the title. But nevertheless, that wasn't the biggest story really in the last couple of months on the East Coast. I believe we have one Mr. Harden off to the Nets. Obviously, they're doing a fantastic job right now with Harden in the fold. It's pretty easy to see when you have him, Kyrie, and KD all in the fold to see how successful they could be. A lot of people worried about the drama that could ensue. Justin, what's been your take so far?
The Brooklyn Nets are so interesting. And they are the most interesting team in the NBA right now because they have 3 superstars, ball dominant superstars, in Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. You know, when I first heard that that James Harden was going to the Nets, the first thing that came to my mind was, Saul, you know this being a hoop head. You know the ball where it's just so worn down, it has like that fuzzy feeling to it.
Oh yeah.
I just thought of that basketball. You could just look at the picture of that basketball and just feel that picture. That's exactly what I thought of because I mean that ball is just going to get so worn down with these 3. But you know they score at such a high clip. In order to beat these guys, you're going to have to score at least 115, 120 points, because they are just so incredible at scoring the basketball, especially with James Harden. But I just want to know, will this carry over? Because the one guy that I know is going to step up when it's time, Kevin Durant. Kyrie Irving has also had experience in the NBA Finals, stepping up to that play. I mean, Saul, you have said this many times before in this podcast. He has a huge part in LeBron James's one of his championship rings with that shot. But what about James Harden? You know, in elimination games, I think over the last 5 series or 5 years, he's 1-4. Hasn't really done anything when he gets to the playoffs, when it's in crunch time and they need a bucket and they need James Harden to step up to the plate. I haven't seen that from James Harden. Is he one of the best scorers we have ever seen? Absolutely. But I still haven't seen it in postseason. And you know, Houston, they gave him so many opportunities. They gave him everything that he ever asked for, and it did not work out. So he asked for this. Let's see if it works out in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how it's going to work out. One thing people love, they love like just complete success, you know, record-breaking success, or they like to see a dumpster fire. And we're going to get one of the two once we hit the playoffs. You know, I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you. You know, KD's back in the fold. With KD and Kyrie, they have nothing to prove. They won championships before.
Sure.
They probably feel like they should win this one, but there's still a lot of in their way. And sometimes when you have a team that has better chemistry than just 3 superstars, that can be enough. So we will see how this all unfolds. Still a lot left. We'll get to the CP3 Harden dynamic back in the day and how just how much of a difference it is now between these two when we get to our 5th most missed thing of the last 2 months. But nevertheless, besides the Super Bowl, besides Harden, the NCAA also carried through a season that we unlike any other, really, and it ultimately led to Alabama winning a national championship. And I'm going to give you my thoughts real quick. Congratulations to those who just said F it and just went about their business and kept going like nothing was going on with COVID. Okay? That's how you have to say it, because the teams in Florida had no business running the season the way they did, but there they were. You know, Florida was a hot spot for 1 second or for 1 point, but they still kept going. Whereas California had to shut down and teams had to relocate. By the way, we do have Kaelen Jones joining us here in a few moments. Going to talk some NFL, but anyway. And so I felt like, you know, we saw it here in the Pac-12, how they got off to such a late start. They really didn't give any of their teams a chance to really be in contention or even in the conversation for the college football playoff. And they played like some teams only played 4 games. Some teams only played 5. Like it was just an absolute mess from coast to coast. Ohio State makes it in despite the fact that they only played 6 games. But hey, if you let them in, they have a chance to win. And that's exactly what Ohio State did, getting all the way to the national championship. But at the end of the day, Alabama is Alabama, and Alabama was the best team in the country, hands down, by far.
I thought Texas A&M should have gotten to the college football playoff. I thought they should have been in over Ohio State. But, man, Alabama was so good. Just think about how good this team is. Their star wide receiver, their number 1 go-to guy, goes down with an injury, and Jalen Waddell. Remember, going into the season, Jalen Waddell was the talk everyone wanted to see. You know, he's this great wide receiver. He's going to be a first-round talent. He goes down. Alabama's offense under Steve Sarkisian's direction, they just kept chugging along. And
Yep.
sure enough, one of those wide receivers stepped up and became Devontae Smith, a Heisman Trophy winner.
I mean,
the first Heisman Trophy winner since, 1999, I believe it was, or Desmond Howard was the last non-quarterback
running back. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is just an incredible accomplishment for Alabama. And I'm interested to see where all these guys land in the NFL draft. But Nick Saban, once again, he continues to show that he is one of the GOATs, if not the GOAT in college football. And I think we need to learn to appreciate what we have right now with GOATs. Tom Brady's only got a couple of years left as the greatest quarterback of all time.
True.
Bill Belichick. People continue to say, oh, well, maybe Belichick needed Tom Brady. I think we need to stop with that conversation. They both needed each other. They both benefited from each other. We need to appreciate Bill Belichick because we don't know when he's going to continue to coach. Tom Brady might not agree,
but yeah.
Okay. But Nick Saban, he's got 7 national championships. He passed Paul Bear Bryant for most national championships at Alabama. It's incredible. And I think we really need to appreciate, because we don't know how much longer Nick Saban has, but it's just insane to think about how long Nick Saban has been in the sport and how long he's been able to maintain success.
We literally
Truly a legend.
We literally are in the GOAT era as we speak.
Yeah.
And I don't say that, how big of a Michael Jordan stan I am. I still think he's the greatest of all time, but you can't deny the fact that LeBron's doing what he's doing at the age that he's doing it, and doing it with such relative ease and being injury free essentially his entire career. That's the thing that gets me. Same thing with Tom Brady. He had the ACL the one year, but outside of that, he's been, he's been pretty free of injury. So you have those two coaching legends. Don't forget about Tiger in golf. Like, we are in the middle of a GOAT renaissance. Yeah, Serena in tennis. I mean, and people that athletes that have been dominating their sport for a decade or even two. It's pretty remarkable. Absolutely. Speaking of athletes and dominating a sport, salty. I'm sorry, but Barry Bonds should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I don't really care what you have to say. The fact that this man is not in the Baseball Hall of Fame and he holds records out the wazoo. I mean, he was one of the first players to go 30-30, and that was with the Pirates before he even got to San Francisco. It's just a shame. And I know there's a lot of baseball writers. I know a lot of baseball writers, and they really take their job seriously when it comes to voting for the Baseball Hall of Fame. And that's all well and good. And however they feel about the steroid era is however they feel. I just think that Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I can't say it any better. And it's so unfortunate that these guys have dominated their sport. Curt Schilling, while I think he is a total jerk, and I could think of a lot of other names about Curt Schilling on how he is as a person, he's a very interesting character, to say the least. That still
interesting is one way to put it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, seriously. But that still doesn't take away what he did as a professional baseball player.
Yeah, I mean,
an incredible pitcher, man.
Two World Series championships, one with a bloody sock. I mean, you got to give it to him for that. And go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, it's just I hate Baseball Hall of Fame because it's turned into a popularity contest. It's how well liked were you among media members? How did you get along with other media members? Barry Bonds wasn't the easiest person to deal with. Just ask the late great Pedro Gomez, may you rest in peace, who's the beat reporter for Barry Bonds. A very difficult person. I just think that these guys deserve to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I think it's a joke that they pretty much have to go all the way to the 10th ballot in order to get in. We'll see next year if they get in.
Absolutely. And then our last topic before we bring on Kaelen Jones, I mean, we're going to go NBA.
Shout out,
and
Saul.
We're going to go, baby. Them Phoenix Suns. Them Phoenix Suns. I mean, hey, ESPN Power Rankings came out today and had the Suns listed as the 5th best team in the NBA, not even in the West. I've long said for quite a while, and if you've ever followed, if you follow me or if you know anything about what we do on the side is, let me change this graphic so that my big ass head is not in the way.
I think DeAndre Ayton's covering you.
Yeah, he's covering me. So if you follow me or anything like that, you'll know that I'm on the Solar Panel podcast and we talk about the Suns 24/7, right? The one thing about this team that's so different, and this is where I'm going back to the Harden thing, CP3 and the impact that he is having on this young team. And I'm not talking about raising the level of play. Players have slumped up, during the season, just like any other team. But everybody's in just about the right position at all times, and that's the most important thing for a young team is to know where to be, and then you start to improve from there. And CP3's brought that added element, and it kind of shows you where James Harden might have fell off. He wanted to do it his way. CP3 was trying to do it his way. And CP3's method seems to be a hit here in the Valley.
Yeah, and as soon as this trade happened, a lot of people scratched their head and thought, why are the Suns doing this? Because CP3 is on the back nine of his career. He's almost close to retirement, and the Suns are this young team moving in this one direction. So why would you acquire a player like CP3? But then I said, no, not so fast. Think about what happened this past year. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they acquire Chris Paul. And then you have all these young pieces, guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the guy from ASU, Lou Dort. I mean, they have a lot of interesting young players on their team. But a lot of people didn't think that Chris Paul was going to be able to lead this team to the NBA playoffs. And they did, and he was also an all-star this past year, last season.
Second, all NBA second team.
So you pair him up against a talented scorer, a guy who proved it in the NBA bubble this past year in Devin Booker, a guy who's going to consistently go out and get you 25 points. And then you also add in a rising big man in the number 1 overall pick in DeAndre Ayton. I mean, the Phoenix Suns, if Chris Paul can take last year's Oklahoma City Thunder team to the playoffs, what do you think putting him on a team that went 8-0 in the bubble and was just this close from making the playoffs? I think it was a great deal, and so far it's worked out for the Phoenix Suns. They're 4th in the Western Conference. The fact that the Phoenix Suns are 4th in the Western Conference, when even I thought at the start of the year that they were going to be maybe a 7 seed, I think it really goes to show how big adding Chris Paul was for that team.
Absolutely. I mean, and watching this team on a daily basis, they're going to get better. They're only going to improve. So who knows? Who knows where the ceiling is for this team? It's just great to have them, playing well, because it's been like a decade, Justin. It's been like a decade, and it's been hard to watch sometimes. But we made it, Mama. We made it.
See you in the playoffs, Saul.
We're back to relevance. That's good. But speaking of relevance, the NFL never stops, it feels like. The Super Bowl was just last week, and we already have drama. We had drama before the Super Bowl with a couple key items. And to talk a little bit about some of the stuff going around the NFL is the one and the only Kaelen Jones. Kaelen, what's going on, my man?
What's good, guys? How are you doing?
Good. Hey, we're going to start it off really hot. We might as well go ahead and talk about your man, Dak Prescott, and Deshaun Watson. The killer D's is what I'm going to call them, because we need to figure out where they're going and what's happening. So let's start with Dak. Difficult position that the Cowboys are in. It's the rare opportunity, or it's the rare scenario where the player actually does have quite a bit of leverage in this situation, because he was franchise tagged. You don't want to reach that 3rd franchise tag, because then after that you're a free agent and the team can't do anything about it. Speak to that. Yeah,
so Dak's in an interesting spot. I think at the end of the day, I do think that the Cowboys and Prescott will end up, agreeing to some type of deal, because, again, I think when you look at the quarterback market and the way that it's gone so far, just the fact that you have a Matt Stafford who, obviously has great talent, but has, in the eyes of NFL personnel, he's probably a fringe top 10, top 12 guy. He's not squarely within that top 10. Dak Prescott is squarely within that group, maybe on the outer end of it, but he's squarely within that group, and he's a younger guy. He'll be able to keep the Cowboys in contention in the NFC for however long he's with their franchise. So, I think that they're going to end up finding a way to make that deal and make that pairing work. I wouldn't be shocked at all, if it happens over the next few weeks. I know that, the big deal, at least that's been on in, all the talk shows and media this week, has been how Dak Prescott responded to one of his teammates' Instagram posts, and how, the Cowboys forgot to put him in their hype video on Twitter. So it wouldn't shock me at all that, now that it's starting to get back into the news cycle with the Super Bowl being done, that Dak Prescott ends up being a Dallas Cowboy for a minute.
They forgot to put him in the hype video. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do you get upset about that if you're Dak?
I don't know. See, that's the funny part. It really depends on whether you care enough that, the realist at the end of look, that's the thing to me. It's like, realistically, there is the chance that he's not on the team. So if you're the social media guy making the video, you're like, hey, there's no guarantees on the team, so maybe we don't put him in the video. I don't know.
No, that guy, the guy on the social media team, he's thinking 10 steps ahead, because if Dak ends up on the move, he's like, well, I don't got to touch the video.
Exactly. Exactly. See, that's the thing. So.
I'm going to let you know this right now. Being in social media, that's a big no-no, and I guarantee that kid or that guy or that girl, whoever it was, got called into the office, was like, listen here, bro. Like you just caused a whole shitstorm for no reason.
Yep.
So
you're in the news cycle now. So
Deshaun Watson is almost on the flip side of this spectrum,
right,
where he's already signed a deal and he's trying to get out of it because every one of his homies is leaving. JJ Watt's gone, DeAndre Hopkins was gone because he was traded for like a bag of chips last season. So many things that have happened to Deshaun Watson besides the fact, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. That is indisputable. But Houston ain't treating him like they should, or at least how he thinks they should.
Yeah, the thing with Deshaun is really interesting because, like you said, he is squarely a top 5 quarterback at this point. I think he proved that this season. And with him, it wouldn't shock me at all if Houston, who, their whole entire regime has been very interesting, we'll put it that way, especially with their hiring of Jack Easterby and the way that Nick Caserio is on board. But I kind of think that Caserio is very much serious when he says they intend to keep him. And I think this is something that, while social media, it's been fun, even for me, like projecting where Deshaun Watson might end up. It's fun, it's definitely not just content, but it's just fun banter to this think about like where Deshaun would make a true difference. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to move until either at around draft time, where Houston has a bunch of offers, either from Miami and the Jets. I think those are like the two, probably the most likely spots, just because they offer the most draft capital. But if I'm Houston, I understand their leverage in the sense that they're able to stand pat and really force Deshaun Watson's hand and to hold this out into the regular season. It wouldn't shock me at all if, I think Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk actually explained the scenario earlier today, which was, he holds out until about week 10 and then returns to the team. So that way you get your accrued NFL your accrued NFL year.
Your time served. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then it helps in terms of like how much his contract is worth and everything. So I don't know the mechanisms of all that, but I do think that's a very likely scenario because I think Deshaun Watson is very principled, and I think the Texans are very serious in that they're going to try and honestly screw this up as much as possible.
Screw this much as possible. Haven't they already?
Yeah.
Houston, but that's what
so
Houston
bad.
does. That's what Houston does. Houston franchises, let's just be real. Houston franchises
just in the
are
last 2
known
months
for screwing everything up. Look at the Astros, and then you look at the Rockets and the Harden situation, and now you go to Deshaun and DeAndre Hopkins from a year ago. Like, something is in the air in Houston, and they need to blow it out because it ain't working.
Yeah,
Stop,
take it out the cartridge.
Stop it. Oh, my goodness. It's crazy. Crazy.
Man.
It doesn't make sense because they just lost JJ Watt too. And I know that was mutual, but he saw the writing on the wall. He even told Deshaun Watson, we wasted your year. So
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate.
So those two guys right there, Kaelen, J.J. Watt and Deshaun Watson, if you were to say any team in the NFL that those guys are most likely going to be on next year, pick a team for both of those guys.
So for JJ, I think that he'll end up in Wisconsin. I think Green Bay would be a really interesting spot for him, just because it's close enough to home. He doesn't have to play in the AFC, where you're going up against Patrick Mahomes potentially, who's kind of got that conference in his grip. And then I know that you're going up against Tom Brady potentially in the Buccaneers again, but I think that Green Bay would be a really ideal fit, especially considering that they need someone to kind of help alleviate the pressure for some of their other pass rushers off the edge. And then for Watson, I sincerely think it's going to be the Texans. Like at the start of the year, it wouldn't shock me at all. If he's still on the roster, the Texans haven't budged on trading him or pushing him somewhere else. And then I don't think Watson's going to give in to, not holding out either. I think that he's legitimately going, and I won't say him, but I think both sides are going to drag this as far as they can and keep their plants, stuck in the dirt as long as possible before they have to budge. So I expect Houston to really stand firm here, and I expect Watson to as well.
JJ Watt trains in the offseason right here. Just say, and he also posted. I think he also posted next on Twitter, I think yesterday, that there's a Culver's right next to his training facility. So he gets the best of both worlds right here, baby.
Man,
someone brought it up. Yeah, he tweeted that a few years ago, actually, when he was training out there. So someone, Arizona Cardinals Twitter found it. So
there you go.
They'll find a way to convince him.
Are the Saints going to move on from Drew Brees no matter whatever he decides?
I think so. I know Sean Payton is capable of constructing a game plan and a scheme that kind of maximizes whatever is left of Drew Brees at this point, but he looks like a completely different player. He doesn't look as healthy as he used to be. I don't think this year, would suggest that he's going to, kind of have a renaissance type of season at all anytime soon, especially coming off the rib injury and the punctured lung as well. And his arm just isn't the same either. So I think if you're Sean Payton and you literally see what you have in Jameis Winston, which the potential has always been there, it's just that the floor is just so low as well. And I think the reason why he went there was so that, he could raise his floor a little bit, stop being so erratic and turn the ball over. And at the same time, we've seen Sean Payton, at least in public, both when he spoke to Kevin Clark, my colleague, on Slow News Day, and with NFL Network, he's mentioned before that Jameis Winston is a guy that they would like to have back. So I think that he has a legitimate shot of returning. I think Taysom Hill is entrenched there, and I think he's kind of I wouldn't say the wild card in that group because again we saw last year that Sean Payton was willing to throw Taysom Hill out and run the ball, and have success with it. So I think you'll end up having Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. The question is whether or not I think Jameis can kind of assume that starting role for New Orleans next year.
One of my favorite parts about this NFL offseason is seeing drunk Tom Brady. Seeing that Super Bowl parade and him throwing a Vince Lombardi trophy around like it's just a plastic football. You hear, what's the Tennessee Titans coach, Mike Vrabel, say certain things about him chopping off a part of his body in order to get one of those Vince Lombardi trophies. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, Tom Brady is tossing it from one boat to another.
And then he got 7.
I guess so. And then seeing him walking out the gate after the parade and him stumbling, that's just a side of Tom Brady where I'm like, that is so relatable. And it's like Tom Brady actually...
Unfortunately, yes, it is very relatable.
Tom Brady actually looks like a human being. And it's so funny to see Tom Brady kind of out of his element in a way and have some fun for himself.
Yeah, it totally is. And I think you guys were talking about it a little bit before I jumped on, but it's kind of getting out the New England Patriots culture. It's the Patriot way where, Bill Belichick, I don't know if it's just Belichick, but that whole culture, it's very much, let your play speak for itself. And there wasn't too much enjoyment, I feel like, out of, all of those Super Bowl runs, the 6 before. So I think, this group, especially playing for Bruce Arians, you can tell who's very, very laid back, very much a player's coach from what I can tell, very understanding and very real. He's never shied back. And I think that authenticity allowed Tom Brady to kind of, at this point, express himself. Same with Gronk. It's funny because we're not talking about Gronkowski being Gronkowski because he was always the outlier amongst all of the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
But now, him being himself doesn't even stand out that much. We're talking about Tom Brady kind of showing off this new personality because we never got to see that true side of him consistently while he was in New England. So it's honestly cool to see, especially when, like you guys mentioned the times before.
Florida Tom is somebody I could kick it with. I ain't gonna lie about that. True. And just before we let you go, Kaelen, what were your overall thoughts? COVID this year, how the NFL tackled it, how they navigated the weeks. It seemed like every week there might be one or two teams that were affected, but in my estimation, they handled it beautifully. I mean, as good as you can expect in a 17-game or 17-week season without really losing any games.
Yeah, no, it's a good question because I've been asked it before. And relative to a lot of the other, sports leagues, I think the NFL did a pretty decent job, relatively speaking. I think there were definitely some holes, in their process. When you talk about how the Steelers games were kind of reshuffled. And then in addition to, I believe the Broncos and Saints played a game, with Kendall Hinton ending up starting at quarterback on a day's notice and not choosing the kind of reset that. And as far as I know, and I still haven't looked it up, I literally talked about this a week ago. And I can only think of the Jaguars player, the running back, Raquel Armstead, I believe, was the only player who was hospitalized because of COVID-19, because of contracting it, which, that number should be 0, but relative to, the grand scheme of things having one person out of the plethora of NFL players they finished the season on time. They had no true lost games, like you said, Saul. So they did a pretty solid job.
Yeah, overall, I thought it was fantastic. And Kaelen, before we let you go, what are you up to now? What are you doing for the Ringer, and what do you got coming up on deck for the next few months?
Yeah, so right now, it's off-season mode, so I'm trying to figure out. This is my first full off-season, 1, covering the NFL, and 2, kind of being with the Ringer too. So I've got some features in the works. I think the next big one, I think that'll be coming out, will be one on Zach Wilson, the BYU quarterback prospect, and kind of his career, and hopefully talking to him soon about it. I've talked to a few people around him, just waiting on him. So.
And Kaelen, what about any podcasts? I'm sure being at the Ringer, you're on all sorts of podcasts over there.
Yeah, so I hop in and out of the Ringer NFL show. I haven't been on anything else, not that I can think of, but that's kind of been where I've been getting some reps in here and there, and then obviously you guys and anything else that pops up over the off season. I like trying to get as much practice, I guess, as I can, and also just chopping it up with you guys. It's been fun.
There you go. Really there you go. The NFL draft is coming up, so you can look out for that email as well.
Yep.
That is Kaelen Jones. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Kaelen, you're the man. Thank you.
Kaelen Jones.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. He writes for the NFL for the Ringer, and he does a fantastic job. If you haven't read his stuff, definitely go check him out on Twitter. He's a good follow. Very insightful, and he's one of these. I'm gonna call it
he's a gem.
I'm gonna call it a new breed.
Because
there was this time back in the day where you would not be put on an NFL beat unless you were a seasoned vet, like 30, 40 years old at least. And now you got these young up and comers who just have talent out the wazoo, and you can't deny it. And he's one of those young up and comers. You're one of those young up and comers yourself. And you guys are just killing the game, doing your own thing. And Kaelen Jones, Justin, I remember when we were at the U of A just a few years ago, and after the game, we were on the court and we were talking to Kaelen about the ASU U of A basketball game. We fast forward 4 or 5 years now. You're doing your thing. He's at the Ringer, which is one of the bigger publications out there. Just phenomenal.
Yeah, and it also goes to show the kind of worker that he is. As long as I've known Kaelen, he has been a grinder. Even when he was at ASU, he didn't just say, "Oh, I'm going to go to Cronkite. I'm going to let going to ASU on my resume get me a job." The man always worked his tail off, and he deserves everything that he gets because he's a gem. Absolutely. And speaking of young up-and-comers, I don't know if he is an up-and-comer, Saul, but Shams Charania, I just discovered he's my age. He's 25 years old, and he's literally one of the lead.
28.
Is he 28? I thought
28, but he was on Forbes 30 under 30 list. Where you at?
Yeah.
I'm
watching 30 for 30.
Once you get to like 40 under 40, then there is no list, and I missed out on all that stuff because there ain't no 50 under 50 because that just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? So like my hopes and dreams are gone for that kind of stuff. It's up to you, my man. Where you at? Come on now.
We'll see. But man, Shams, young guy.
It's actually Shams.
Charania.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, I didn't want to call him Shams because I was like, it just made me want to say Sham Wow, and I was like, don't say that. Don't say Sham Wow.
Don't say it.
Yeah.
Man, I wonder what that guy's up to nowadays.
Who?
The Sham Wow guy.
I don't know, but he can't be doing as bad as the My Pillow guy. Hey, there we go.
Oh man.
And here we go. Anyway, man, Justin, it's been so good to be back. We do have some typical I can't talk right now. Staples of our show. Usually it's Don't Be That Guy, where we point out somebody and their foolishness from the week. Or we do Tell Me Something Good, where we show you something that makes you feel good. But we wanted to keep it short, kind of simple. Get back into the fold. Get back into that rhythm.
Grease up the wheels again, man.
That's it, baby. There's a lot of stuff going on. Not only with Justin and myself, but also with Total BS. We have a lot of things that are in the works, as always, it seems like. But if you want to be involved in the show, please shoot us a message on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, leave a comment, whatever you want to do. Justin, tell the people where they can find us.
And then for the audio version of Total BS Podcast, make sure you go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, and please subscribe, rate, review, and then repeat it and share it with all your friends. Total BS Podcast. Yeah,
we are definitely worldwide, baby. And
our fans in India, we're back.
For sure, we are back. We are strong, and we are better than ever. So you can believe that. But until next time, folks, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Total BS Podcast. We'll see you when we see you. Peace.
Yo, your fans just might turn into our fans. Be cool, it's just a part of this program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You not whack, you just sound whack.